models of charter schools throughout the district right now. And I will say that it has been permissive of charter schools. I don't know that it's necessarily been friendly. One of my task force that I asked to be set up was a charter immigration task force, so that we learn to operate with each other and make sure that we're not, having charter schools, take populations away from other schools where that's an unhealthy relationship. That we are going to learn to work better with all of our schools, will be much better integrated. The point of a charter school is to say, hey, I have this idea about how I think kids can learn better. That's not going to turn with this whole shift. Can we go off and do that? A point of innovation. They give you a charter, but there's a lot higher accountability for what you're supposed to be doing. And I will tell you, as a parent of an independent startup charter school, one of the things that I have enjoyed for my child's career there is that APS is not going to come in and take our principal. We have a governing board that controls our school. That decision is made on that micro level. I think it is very important to understand, a lot of people have talked a lot about charter schools in some profiteering, kind of privatizing sort of way. We don't have any of that in Atlanta Public Schools. This is not some corporate takeover of schools. These are public funds that pay for these kids to go to public school, but they're just learning in a different learning environment, whether it's a different curriculum, a different school day. There's a charter conversion that's happening right now with Centennial Place. They're a year-round school. So it's a way to get a little more flexibility out of what you're doing instead of turning the entire system at once. What I hope we can do, I would love it if APS doesn't need to have people pull their hair out and having to start a charter school because they want a quality education. I would love it if all of our schools provide that. That'd be great. I think we have vocabulary issues with that word, and I'm glad you made that point about we are going to have to choose our governance system for Atlanta Public Schools. We can't just sit by and do nothing. The choices currently, and they keep changing, choices are status quo, which is what we are doing right now, which has high levels of sort of hoops we have to jump over. The accountability is, and then the charter system model, which is what Fulton County has moved to. We can see that with our neighbors. They've been in it for a couple of years, and we can, we got good data there. We can look at how it's working for them and use that sort of as a model to guide what we're thinking about. But honestly, I think that this decision, the thought about how are our schools operating, are they operating well, are our principals happy, that's not what I'm hearing. I'm not hearing that our principals are excited about what's going on all over the place. I'm hearing that they're frustrated because they're not getting support on this level, this level, this level, and this level. And I think our job is to make sure that we provide support for our principals so that they can make the decisions that they know they need to make in their buildings. That's where we're going to get something really great happening. And it doesn't, I just want to make sure, I want to plead everybody, let's not get caught up on a word.
Thank you. This is probably a policy question maybe for you, Ishe. It is related to the fact that we all understand that early education is some of the keys to long-term student success. First of all, how many early education models do we have in Atlanta Public Schools, and what policies can be developed in order to ensure that all schools that have capacity can house an early education facility, and that we can recruit from that community and cluster up so that we understand that the achievement is going to be sort of like Drew Charter, in a sense, where they talk about the cradle to college model. We have to be able to adopt some of those policies, some of those ways as well. So is there a way that a policy can be developed in order for us to be able to use those schools that have capacity to make sure that they have early education?
Yes, definitely. Policy can be set up with the emphasis focusing on improving student achievement by starting early, and that will be investing in early education opportunities. The actual build-up and structure of that will weigh down on the administration. And when you think about it, and to answer your question now, with our early education model that we have in APS now, it is the standard from right from the start from the state of Georgia and Georgia pre-K lottery. And some people may be okay with that, but in the work that I do and what I've seen in private centers and in centers that are not that are not in the school district is that autonomy to bring other resources in, and where I've seen pre-K children actually fluent Spanish or have robotics at 3 years and 4 years old, or leaving the class pre-K at the end of the year and actually are reading Lexile 3rd grade and 4th grade books. And so when you tell a parent that yes, your baby is 4 years old and 5 years old and can actually read, and it's hard for them to believe I've seen it. At APS, we have not nurtured that, or more importantly, we have not built the relationships with those philanthropy and nonprofit organizations that do that work. And it absolutely baffles me and amazes me that in Atlanta we have about 25 very, very active nonprofit entities and organizations with a focus on early education. And for Atlanta to be out of those 25 to only have a partnership with 2 or 3 is very frustrating. I think when we talk about adding another level to a curriculum, or adding another, adding another level or another budget line item, biggest thing that hit off is money. Well, there's your opportunity to provide those resources and higher access to quality for free through partnerships. And so I know for policy, we can develop a policy that actually entails, in an effort to improve student achievement, we must invest in our children early on and look at expanding early education opportunities. And so to go to your second question, where you talk about, well, how can we get that done, infrastructure, expanding those resources. I have posed the idea of looking at some of the vacant buildings that we have and actually looking at creating early education academies. We see it with the 6th grade academies. We see it with 9th grade academies. We can actually use one of the vacant buildings and build a center for our pre-K children, which will pretty much guarantee another 300 or 400 slots for our children to begin early. And it could be expanded to the entire community. That's just one idea, but it can actually be done, and it's being done throughout the country. I don't understand why we haven't done it yet. No need to point fingers, no need to place blame. Just thought we see the problem, now let's solve it.
Thank you. And this may be a budget question for you, Matt. It is related back to principal autonomy within the schools. Can you tell us what percentage of the budget or the school expenses that go to central office, and how can we eliminate some of the central office money and push it into the schoolhouse where principals have the autonomy to be able to make it work within their schools?
Yep. The percentage of money from our budget that goes directly to schools for principals to spend is very small. In fact, it's almost entirely title funds, which also come with a great many constraints. One of the things that Jason was talking about earlier is that right now we have to follow state regulations in terms of where our money comes from and where it goes, and it has to meet this requirement, that requirement, this requirement. And very little of it actually winds up in the hands of staff at schools to determine how that should best be spent. One of the things that I'll be thinking about when we have conversations about governance structures over the next year and a half is what governance model will most effectively allow us to put money at schools in the hands of people who know our kids a lot better than either someone who works in the central office, and especially someone who works at the state. And that's a conversation that I think we can start right now, and that we'll be able to have more earnestly when we talk about governance models, and which one we want to adopt to make sure that money is as close to kids as possible.
Thank you. And one question, I don't know who asked this question, but one person asked, and this is something that we'll have to answer from SNAPPS. Somebody asked a question in reference to why isn't the superintendent here and why doesn't he attend meetings like this? Which I think is kind of funny because SNAPPS has had a superintendent 6 times to the point where other sides of town think that we have a monopoly on him. And so I guess the question may be, maybe we need to do better in our communication, but every year, first of all, we have a town hall meeting at the very beginning of the school year for the superintendent, and we've had numerous meetings at Thero and at the clusters with very specific issues. And the superintendent, we had one at Thero last year for the teachers, and so the superintendent has been to numerous SNAPPS meetings, Washington High School, and we've also had the entire senior cabinet at our very first SNAPPS meeting. 14 people from downtown were here to answer questions. We have got to engage ourselves a little bit more. We bring the decision makers to you all. You all have to come to the locations that we bring them so that they will hear from you. Okay, so I want to answer that question. SNAPPS person.
Wow. Let me also say that District 5 will be having the quarterly town hall meeting, which will be held at Young Middle School on March the 14th. And we're asking the senior staff if they would be at that town hall meeting, as the town hall, the first one of the year, to meet and greet. So we'll be bringing the senior staff to the community, and that's on March the 14th. Here, and it'll be hosted at Young Middle School.
Thank you. This is a special education question. In 2007, Atlanta Public Schools, way before most of you all's time, in 2007, Atlanta Public Schools commissioned a task force, a PEC task force, which is what it was called at that particular time. It was a 2-year process. Out of that task force came an audit. The audit was accepted by the last board, not this board, in September 2010. Since that time, we have had multiple changes in administration, and we feel like the fidelity of the special education department in some ways have been lost. So a couple of questions related to it. How can we help convince the Board of Education that we need universal screening for every child in kindergarten, so that we can not only deal with those students? For me as a parent, my two of my children in kindergarten were asked, oh, they're talented and gifted, I want to test them for talented and gifted. But my daughter, who ended up having ADHD, I had to fight to get her tested in 3rd grade. And so how can we be able to have universal screening where we're quick to identify those who are talented and gifted, but also that we're also quick to identify those who have need? How can we develop policy, and how can we put budget and priorities around special education in Atlanta Public Schools? Because I don't have to tell you all that our graduation rate is dismal in the teens for special education, and our disproportionality that we are in trouble with is related to Black boys and special education students being expelled and suspended from school. And so I'd like to talk a little bit about that.
I think that's going to be a top priority of the accountability committee. So big piece of our work is getting an accountable structure in place for the new superintendent, making sure that that work is good and solid. And then I think we have to get on this. The 2 most critical things in our system are exactly what you just said. And so if we're not paying attention to that, if we're not willing to raise the floor and take care and raise up, the least of these in this system who have been not well served for many years, then it doesn't matter what else we do. So that is those 2 things exactly. Courtney said to me the other day, he's like, this is the work we were doing. So that is it.
Well, like Leslie said, the main thing is finding a superintendent that has the understanding mainly on what this school district needs. But what I want to make sure that we understand is that when we make these overall universal changes, and we had a conversation with the superintendent before, and his question was, well, you tell us what you want us to do, and we will put that in front of you for your vote. And it's going to test your resolve, because when you start making changes, you start adding dollars to the bottom line. And so we have to be able to say, if this is where we want our focus, this is where we will put our money. And if this is where we're going to put our money, then, we're going to have to either say some of these things that we're doing now may not be done, or if we're going to keep doing what we're doing and add the additional levels, then additional revenue is going to have to come in from somewhere. So those are those decisions. Just keep in mind that every time we make a decision, that there is a bottom line dollar amount that goes to that decision. And we have to be able to fund that. If we add 1 teacher to every school, we're talking about $1 million a year, just in bottom line. So we have to be sure that what we're doing is where we want it. What we're doing is where we're going for the long term, because otherwise we're spending a lot of money and not getting what we really need to be done.
This is 9B. Oh.
Just to piggyback off, I think that is one for the accountability committee, and I'm glad that you brought that up. We've been talking about the discipline issue, because the numbers are dreading to see the rate of suspension and exposure for our children. But when you ask for the data, you can't get a solid number on how many of our children that's in the SST process are actually there for academic versus behavioral. And so for a policy, accountability is to definitely make sure we get that information. But I also think that we can, there could be a policy that could be implemented, if it's not already there, that allows parents with their consent, they feel the need to have their children assessed early. We'll need a community feedback and help with is educating our community on the importance of assessment and testing. That's the big issue when you want to test children, assess children early. We attach that to some sort of deficiency versus just to see where your child is. And so as much as we create the policy, we would need your help and your support to educate the community on actually getting it done.
I don't want to sound like a broken record here, but we are asking those questions of the candidates for superintendent. So rest assured that that exact topic has been brought up with the candidates.
Very good. This is around IB. Particularly in the West region, we only have 2 schools that are IB schools. One is Deerwood and one is Beecher Hills, with no vertical alignment beyond the elementary school, which is very interesting since they say IB is not as relevant on the elementary level. Is there or will there be a policy whereby if a school desires to go IB, that it is a cluster decision or opposed to a standalone decision? International Baccalaureate.
Yes, IB is short for the International Baccalaureate Program, which we have, as Shauna said, in 2 schools in the West region. They're also, that's also being built at Jackson High School, and is the cluster reform model that was adopted some time ago in the North Atlanta cluster. Both of my children actually went through IB, and I have to say I'm a real fan of it. In answer to the question, though, I think that that will certainly be a part of the equity audit that is taking place right now. The question, I think, was how can we ensure that a school that wants it gets it? Well, the first thing is that we have to hear that you want it. If that is something that a school or a cluster wants to pursue, then that is definitely something that needs to be communicated through the appropriate channels to any of us, to your regional directors, and on up the chain. That is something we'd love to hear about. But I think that will certainly be a part of the equity audit and looking to make sure that resources and opportunities are distributed equitably throughout the district.
As a District 6 representative, that has been the top priority, which is a really quick fix. I'm already in conversation with individuals on getting that done so I can bring that back to the community. And it only makes sense. You have an IB program in elementary. You have parents that are highly invested in moving their children to an IB program. If you don't have it, how can you strengthen your community, your cluster schools, if you don't have that option available for middle school and high school? That only makes sense. And so what we have, I live right next door to Deerwood Academy, and my neighbors, what we have is that once their children graduate from Deerwood, they're finding they're on the top list for the administrative transfers, trying to get their children in the middle schools throughout the city that have IB programs. And so that conversation is taking place. The administration is aware of it, and hopefully I can report out and have some information to give to the community soon. But that was one of my top priorities. It only made perfect sense to create a solid IB track, and we're trying to sustain our cluster schools.
Part of District 2. I haven't asked for it. So it appears to me that Brown Middle School or at Washington High School, parents are going to look for IV found here in Jackson. We need to know more. We are not educated enough as a community.
Well, that's one of the things that we're attempting to do with the board having our town hall meeting. So our town hall meetings, and I believe all the board members have agreed to do one town hall meeting, at least one per quarter. So these are issues that we will be bringing in. And these town hall meetings is all about educating the community about those issues that it relates to. So we want to, and like Ishay said, it's already been discussed, and the superintendent and the administration is aware that there should be a solid track of IB programs in every cluster. So we're definitely on that, and we're looking forward to that. But the education part is going to have to, if we don't get the people out to the community meetings to educate them, then we're still going to have that little small pocket of parents that understand that. So with an IB program comes additional educational type requirements, a higher level of rigor in the coursework. So we need to make sure that all of the parents in that community understand that, but we can only do what we can do, and that's basically have town hall meetings, have the people there to discuss those issues, and that way we can bring it to the table and then have the PTSA, the local school council, and those things discuss it further and bring back those desires and wishes to the ED or the board so that we can move forward. But we can't, these 9 people that we so gracious that you elected us, but without your help, then it's going to be kind of hard for us to move the district forward because we're your mouthpiece. But when we vote for things that you say you want, then we need you to be out there helping us get it out to the community because this is what the community said they want. And we have to make sure that everybody is aware of it, but we need to get them to, I'm happy to see as many people out tonight, but we need to make sure that people are out at the town hall meetings and they're coming to actually be involved in the process and being willing to be a part of the process so that we can move this thing in the direction that the community wants to see it move into.
Thank you, Stephen. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if you bear with us, a priority for this board is to push a lot of these decisions down to the schoolhouse because we believe the people at the school know much better than implementing programs system-wide. So that takes time, and we have built-in inequities that we're also working towards addressing. But bear with us because we agree more than any other group of people that these decisions need to be pushed down to the schoolhouse. And it should be the people closest to our kids making these decisions.
Respond to what you just said.
And thank you. And so,
Can I respond, please?
yes, ma'am.
I couldn't even hold it.
Okay. Real quick, because
When you said that they are trying to make decisions and put and actually base a decision, make a decision, and then implement it down in the schoolhouse. For the principal and whoever her executive staff is making decisions. Now, with the principals, all the time the principals make decisions, not necessarily the right decisions. I don't think that the principal needs to have necessarily that much power within the school. That is what's making the school is the leadership in the principal. So when you have a problem with the principal, and you ain't got that many parents participating, that's a problem. That means a problem within the head of leadership. So when you say that, I don't think that's a very good idea to do. But there's no accountability nowhere. I'm just going straight to the principal.
It comes with a lot of accountability. You don't release that without a lot of accountability.
And that's what I was going to say. You need accountability, but one point that you just raised, which is a key to pushing power down to the schoolhouse, is community involvement and parent participation.
Well, you don't have
And
to, particularly none of your schools is up for North Side.
well,
Inside, don't have.
and that's one of those reasons, and I get the time, but that's one of those reasons that these things don't happen immediately. We can't do this right now. It takes time, and we have to set things up, and we're working on that.
And so I just want to thank everyone. I know we have some more questions that need to be, that want to be raised up. I want to thank the board members for being here and staying on the time. Thank you so much. I want to thank our hosts here at Mays High School, the staff here, the executive staff. Thank you for the staff. I want to thank you parents for coming out and being with us today. I want to thank the students here for our parents. Give yourself a hand. Council is so important. Local school councils are that body of voices, parent-led, that can speak to the principals. You have principals over here who are dying for you to come sit on those councils. They need you to go to those councils. You can join them. Well, I tell you what, Dr. Middleton and I have, Dr. raise your hand, please. That's my man. Okay. That's my guy. And he will help you. He will help you, or I will help you. You call me, and we can help you talk to those local school council people. You know, local school council is that body. It's a state mandate that we have a voice, and we can talk to. You can write send a letter to the board. They have 60 days to answer your letter. I don't think you actually knew that law. So if you have a problem at the school site, which I doubt you would have in this region, however, if you did have that problem, you could write to the board directly. And they could and they have to get back with you. So we're here today, we're here for the rest of the school year to actually celebrate all the successes that have happened, that are going to happen, and move Atlanta Public Schools to the direction that we all want to see it going. I know that this week we have some special things going on.